stand by, Josh. We're going to record this the old way.
Sure.
Okay, go.
Whenever you're ready, Josh.
All right, well, thanks for having me this morning to just kind of fill you in on the results from the fiscal year 2024 audit. Now, I sent a letter over to Commissioner Smith-Casford yesterday, and that has some of the required communications from the audit. Now, the audit that we perform is for the commission as a whole. Excuse me. And really, our responsibility as the commission's auditors is to express an opinion about whether your financial statements are materially correct. Now, we do audit the commission as a whole, but we also audit the commission at each individual fund level, meaning we audit the general fund of the commission, we look at the capital fund, we look at CTO and the historic preservation fund, all separately. And ultimately, we express an opinion on whether the financial statements of the commission as a whole are materially correct, but also at each of those individual fund levels. Now, we perform what's called the risk-based audit, which is where we do a lot of work to identify risks that could impact the financial statements. And as we identify risks, we design procedures that address those risks. Now, risks don't necessarily translate into findings. They just help us guide our audit procedures. Now, at the conclusion of our audit, we did issue an opinion, and that opinion was unmodified. Now, that's really the highest level of assurance that we can provide as auditors. It doesn't mean that there were no adjustments made as part of the audit. It doesn't mean that there were no findings or recommendations made as part of the audit. It simply means that at the conclusion of our audit, we feel that the financial statements of the commission at that entity-wide level, as well as at each individual fund level, are materially correct. Now, this year's audit was a little bit different from the last several audits because we performed the audit under state of Colorado auditor rules, whereas for the previous 3 years, we had performed the audit under the state of New Mexico auditor rules. Now, that changed a few things related to our testing. First and foremost, it changed the deadline for the audit to be completed, but it also changed some of the reporting requirements and whatnot. But ultimately, like I mentioned, the opinion we expressed was unmodified. Now, some other information that is included in that letter I shared with you all, if there were any difficulties we encountered in performing the audit, we would communicate that to you all as part of the audit, and that really as part of this presentation. The only real difficulty we encountered was just getting the information we needed to complete the audit timely. One of the findings that we reported as part of the audit was the fact that the audit was submitted late to the state of Colorado. We completed the audit and submitted it in June, so last month, but the audit was due to be completed by the end of January 2025, so roughly about 5 months after that due date. That due date will remain for fiscal year 2025, so the hope is that this year's audit will be completed by January of 2026 going forward. Now, there were a couple of other findings that were reported as part of the audit. We had a few adjustments that were made as part of the audit. Adjustments are where we test a balance and think the balance should be reported at a different amount than your financial statements show them. So because there were adjustments, we included a finding related to having to post those adjustments, but also related to the fact that the accounting records weren't closed until 7 or 8 months after the end of the year. So that was really the context of the first finding that we reported. And then there was also another finding reported related to the use of purchase orders. Now, your policies require the use of purchase orders for all purchases. And similar to the last several years, we noted that purchase orders weren't used for all purchases that we tested as part of the audit. I want to say there were 2 of the 12 vendors that we tested that didn't have an approved purchase order exceeding the amount of purchases that were made. There were also some other recommendations made as part of the audit, and those are things that don't necessarily translate into findings, but still things that we identified as part of the audit that we wanted to make sure to communicate to you all. Those aren't included in the financial report itself. Those are issued under a separate letter, a 2 or 3 page letter, that contains just other recommendations we made as part of the audit. But really, overall, we did issue that unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. We did have those 3 findings that were reported as part of the audit, as well as those other recommendations. But overall, a clean opinion related to the audit of the financial statements. So I don't know if you all had any questions or others had any questions, but I'd be happy to go through them if you do.
I don't think I've got any questions.
No questions here.
I don't have any questions, Josh, but I do have a request. Normally we get 10 wire-bound copies because they have to go to the governor's actual office and not just to the state auditor. Plus we keep a couple on file. Can you get those to us, please, sir?
Yeah, of course. I'll get those bound this week and over to you.
Perfect. Alicia, Ed, you guys, questions? You done? Okay, you can go fishing now.